5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Just for the drive. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve, and Trevor.
And welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Trevor Struthers. No Steve Schill today, which I'm sure is a little disappointing. It's always great to hear that voice of his. But Steve is away. Maybe he partied a little too hard on the long weekend. But nevertheless, a lot of stuff to get into. So let's start with really the big news a week ago. It was last Tuesday, actually, when this happened. Of course, we're a day late due to the family day holiday. But anyway, Claude Julien was fired by Boston about a couple weeks ago, and it really didn't take him long to find a new job, hired by the Montreal Canadiens, which made all the sense in the world. Obviously, they had to fire Therrien to bring in Claude, but makes all the sense in the world for Montreal. Claude can speak French, which I can understand why it's a big deal in Montreal that the head coach speak French. Obviously, it's coming from a fan perspective, but really, Mike Babcock can't speak French. If Mike Babcock is available in a situation like this, you have to take a Mike Babcock, you know? You don't let guys like that fall through your fingers because they can't speak a language. I know Quebec is a different situation, but you want to be a successful franchise. You know, you're living off those 24 Stanley Cups. You want to try to win the 25th. You got to bring in the best coach available. Lucky for them, the best coach available in this situation was French speaking. That's why they felt the need to make the move, no doubt about it. Claude Julien, obviously familiar with Montreal. He's coached there before. In fact, when he was hired by Montreal the first time mid-season, who was the guy that was fired? It was Therrien. So a bit of deja vu for Michel, unfortunately, and I don't know if I've ever made it apparent on this program, but I'm not a big fan of Therrien. I never really have been, and a lot of that goes back. Obviously, I watch a lot of Ottawa Senators hockey, and that's my team. If you had to ask, and obviously there was that playoff series not too long ago with the Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens, and Therrien, obviously a big part of the figurehead in that series, and said some things that were great sound bites. And obviously you had the big timeout thing as well. I don't know how many of you can recall this, but Paul MacLean calling a timeout late in a blowout game, just kind of warning his guys, stay back, don't get into anything too physical. There was a line brawl earlier in the game, and Therrien took offense to the timeout with how far ahead they were. Didn't make much sense in his head, but never been a big Therrien guy. I love Claude Julien. I love Claude Julien and what he's able to bring to Montreal. Obviously, it hasn't exactly started out on the best foot in terms of wins and losses, but that'll definitely turn around. You can't put that on Claude Julien. Claude Julien's won a Stanley Cup. And whenever you win a Stanley Cup in the NHL, it shows that you can coach in the NHL. You may not be one of the best of all time, but you can coach in the NHL. Claude Julien can do just that. The interesting thing is he goes from a team that's known for being very physical in the Boston Bruins throughout his tenure to a team that really isn't in Montreal. Montreal, it's been said now for a while, last few years. Definitely, obviously, they have the best goaltender in the NHL in Carey Price. That's something else. But just they're a speed team. They're not an overly physical team. They're a smaller team. They're not going to overpower you in the corner, stuff like that. They're a speed team and really a possession team as well. They're at their best. When a lot of teams, I guess, they're at their best when they have the puck. They're not going to be overly physical on you to try to create turnovers. They're more likely to use their sticks than they are their bodies in certain circumstances because that's what works for them. But, so they're a speed team, and it'll be interesting to see how Claude Julien is able to handle that. I'm a young guy, just 20 years old, so I can't exactly recall too fondly Claude Julien coaching anybody else. He was in Boston for 10 years, so I don't remember his first stint in Montreal. I don't remember anything else beyond that for Claude Julien. But now he goes from coaching a physical team and a team that was pretty much physical for those 10 years, for that decade. I mean, that's how they won that Stanley Cup too. They were overly physical on guys like the Canucks, the Sedins, and that's where they were able to win that Stanley Cup. And now he's in Montreal, a team where they're dynamic and how they play is a little different. All right, now switching to basketball, DeMarcus Cousins, that trade. I'm not going to go too much into the DeMarcus Cousins trade because obviously we don't know how it's going to play out yet. But if you try it in 2K, it's not going to work apparently. If you try it in the video game in GM mode, because a lot of people are calling it a lopsided trade in favor of the Pelicans, and it's hard not to, seeing a superstar like DeMarcus Cousins, a star center, go one way. And the other way, you get bits and pieces. I mean, a first-round pick, only one, another second-round pick, and it'll be interesting to see where that second-round pick is. It's a Philadelphia pick, so it could be a pretty high pick. So it could almost end up being like a really late first-rounder, depending on how everything lays out. But, well, I mean, you just look at the trade, and yeah, I mean, obviously, this will be great for DeMarcus Cousins to get a change of scenery in a place where they're trying to build towards something. I mean, who knows what Sacramento's trying to do, and so that it must have made him pretty happy to know he's leaving there. And he should continue to play well. Now you have two really great bigs up front for the Pelicans, and DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis. In fact, while I just brought up his name, let's talk about Anthony Davis here for a second. How about the NBA All-Star Weekend? And Anthony Davis with a record 52 points, beating Wilt Chamberlain's record. That's amazing. Like, I know it's the All-Star game and nobody plays defense, but 52 points in a basketball game is riveting, and you're the star of the game when. That is crazy. The fact that he was able to put up 52 points. And like I said, nobody plays defense. There was one fast break for Antetokounmpo. I was calling him Giannis because I know I botched the heck out of his name. But he went for a layup. And Steph Curry, went for a dunk, pardon me, but it was a fast break attempt. Steph Curry, the only guy back, he's like, you know what? I don't want to be posterized. I'm just going to lie down. That's exactly what he did. And it ended up being posterized later on in the night by Giannis again. So, you could try to avoid him once, but you can't avoid Giannis Antetokounmpo too many times, especially when it comes to trying to say his name on a 15-minute sports show. Even I can't avoid it, apparently. So Anthony Davis, 52 points, incredible. I think him and DeMarcus Cousins, as a lot of people probably think as well, going to be a dominant front court for the Pelicans. And hey, maybe they're starting to look up a little bit now, finally. Now we're going to switch around to something a little more local, stay with basketball. And how about the Loyalist Lancers? And, obviously if you're local, that maybe be where you're paying attention to this team, and maybe even not, but for the local people here around the college, definitely. I've had the chance to follow both the basketball and the volleyball teams. As for the women's basketball team, obviously this season didn't go very well. It'll be interesting to see how many pieces they bring back next year. They celebrated a lot of their key players at the grad game, so that obviously makes us believe that a lot of those key players aren't coming back, which means there'll be opportunity here, which is great. Definitely, they're obviously still trying to recruit and bring in some potential good players, and this can be their team. They can sell them on that fact. And so that'll be interesting to see just how that plays out moving forward. Just they had a really bad season. It's one of those seasons you want to forget. But McCourt, I trust in his ability to be a strong coach in this league. And they just had a bad year. They didn't have the pieces to make it work. You give McCourt a solid few players to work with and create plays with, and they could maybe have a great season. The men's basketball team on the other side just missed the playoffs, and I had the honor of calling the game last Saturday at Durham, our second ever road broadcast, as that was our last broadcast here on 91X as well until next season. So, definitely stick around to hear the Lancers team next season. There are some things looking up, but they also celebrated a lot of people as well in their grad game that are going to be gone. One of which, maybe he'll be back, maybe not. Ty Chapman is, in my opinion, this year's MVP. Maybe could have been Tyron King, but obviously that injury. And, who knows if he'll end up playing tomorrow in the final game of the season at Centennial. But, Tyron, for him to wrap up his career as a Lancer injured is definitely unfortunate for him. They had a lot of things looking towards, they had a good shot at making the playoffs. And, they lost some key pieces, one of which played against them in that Durham game that eliminated them from the playoffs. That's Funcho DeMeji. Obviously, it would have been great to have him back, and if they had him back, that's a solid forward that can really dominate down low. And at times, it felt like they missed that this year. They had a couple of 6'7" guys, DeMeji 6'5", a couple of 6'7" guys like Ty and Carter that could do it, but they can only do that for so long. And if you have Funcho, it's just another weapon and a great guy down low in the paint that they could have used for some easy points, pressure that defense down low. And I'm a firm believer if they had Funcho DeMeji this year, they would have been a playoff team. It turns out they just end up missing. Durham clinched, I believe, 5th is where they'll end up finishing with that win over the Lancers. So nice for Funcho and Durham, not so nice for the Lancers. It'll be interesting also to see where this team is next year just based off of that. But a solid end, or I guess a disappointing end to a solid season for the Lancers, just based off of how everything ended up playing out. They just missed that playoff spot. And hey, if Tyron King's healthy, if Chris Osomani doesn't miss any time, maybe this is a playoff team. All right, Lancers volleyball, forgettable season for the men. Adam Strickland moving on, which is disappointing. One of the best in this country in kills in the CCAA, let alone the OCAA. So him moving on, that's obviously a piece you have to try to replace. And as for the women's team, Lancers volleyball, they're in provincials this weekend. I don't know if you've heard, Lancers faithful and those around the Quincy region, but the Loyalist Lancers women's volleyball team is going to provincials. And, it's nothing against the team. It's a great team, and they were our best shot at making it to provincials from a college standpoint. And so they're here. It's just an amazing fact that they've done it. But, if you look at their season, they've been incredible all year. The only time they've really struggled is when they have had to play the Durhams, the Algonquins, the top heap of the East Division. Funny enough, those are two of the teams that they're going to have to deal with at provincials, at the OCAA championship, at St. Clair and Windsor. But, it's doable. It's definitely doable because this is a good volleyball team. They earned their way there. And I don't know if I had them as the favorite to beat Mohawk at home on the weekend. And that's exactly what they did. In straight sets nonetheless. They looked very impressive in doing so. And obviously, Sarah Piana-Yafu is one of the best in the league. And Emily Lenevue, this is her final season. Nobody has the size that Emily has. In the women's game, it's very unique, and it helps just how tall she is. She's dominant because of that. And obviously the captain of that team seems like a great leader from where I can see, which is, basically just where you could, if you come out to the games, is sitting as a fan. So really it's not a great perspective of things to judge that, but, they have a well-oiled machine. Hopefully they're able to go out there and make the Loyalist Lancers and Loyalist College proud, because they're a really great volleyball team, and they have the potential to do that. And so that practically wraps up this edition of BSS Sports. Of course, no Steve today, so I'm Trevor Struthers. If you have anything to say to what I have said, you can tweet me at Trevor Struthers. And if you don't know how to spell my last name, you don't want to bother, you can also tweet at BSS Sports, and I will see it there as well. You can check us out on Facebook. BSS Sports is the name there. And you can check out fellow episodes like this one as we archive on YouTube at BSS Productions. So that's where you can find all of our stuff for BSS Sports. And that will do it for this edition of BSS Sports. Like I said, my name is Trevor Struthers without Steve Schill this week. But he'll be back next week because Steve's a great guy and he usually doesn't miss any episodes. But this is one rare occasion. I want to thank you for listening and have a good rest